Morning, y'all. All right, so sorry it's been a while. Got a few things to show you. Daddy, what did you do when the state took all our freedom and rights away? I called anyone who questioned it a conspiracy theorist and clapped like a monkey. It's pretty much what we got going on, right, y'all? All right, so controlling the narrative. I know you guys probably know about Operation Mockingbird, but maybe you don't. Let's see if I can get this.
Of the printing press, there's been a battle to control disseminated information. In the early 1900s, oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller took control of every newspaper and news editor of his era. He became America's first billionaire, paving the way for the power-hungry ever since. Thus began the gold rush for the modern world's most precious resource, the narrative.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
During a Senate committee investigation, it was revealed that the CIA had been conducting a covert operation to infiltrate and control U.S. media. They called it Operation Mockingbird.
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals. Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks? This, I think, gets into the kind of details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Over 3,000 CIA contracted and trained operatives were placed in key positions within top media outlets. Posing as editors and journalists, these well-paid actors never dared to question the effect of their lives on the world beyond their cozy studio.
How often does the CIA manipulate the media in this way?
It goes beyond your wildest imagination. Setting up student organizations so they could draw radical students in. 5,000 university professors co-opted to help the CIA manipulate people's minds. Journalists in the U.S., including big-name journalists, co-opted to function routinely to help the CIA put out stories and biases to the world.
As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will.
It's a great brainwashing process to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interest of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
Would you say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations, I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
So how do we know that Operation Mockingbird still is in effect? Well, we don't.
It was the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that opened the door for predatory corporations to monopolize the industries of print and broadcast.
This bill protects consumers against monopolies. It guarantees the diversity of voices.
Today, a handful of corporate empires own and control the vast majority of everything you read, hear, and watch. From the biggest movie studios, television and radio networks, newspapers and magazines, to the vast universe of internet news and entertainment sites.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy while still delivering those packages to the doorstep. Keeping its employees safe and healthy. The company is keeping its employees safe. The company is keeping its employees safe. Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Americans staying at home.
And that is how it works. It's like a house of mirrors, where you're seeing the same thing over and over and over again.
So I thought that was pretty good. And I found this quote by William Casey, the CIA agent head under Ronald Reagan. When everything the American people believe is false, our misinformation campaign will be complete. And that is pretty much what we got going on. This other video here is Tony Blair saying that the vaccination is going to be, in the end, your route to liberty. Apparently now we have a new COVID-19 variant. So what's the point of making everyone take the vaccine So dumb. This guy, Klaus Schwab, you guys know about him. All right, so I'm going to go on to something I think is important here, the Nuremberg Code. So the first article of the Nuremberg Code says the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means that the person involved should have the legal capacity to consent, should be so situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved as to enable him to make an understanding and enlightened decision. This latter element requires that before the acceptance of an affirmative decision by the experimental subject, there should be made known to him the nature, duration, and purpose of the experiment, the method and means by which it is to be conducted, and all inconveniences and hazards reasonably to be expected, and the effects upon his health or person which may possibly come from his participation in the experiment. The duty and responsibility for ascertaining the quality of the consent rests upon each individual who initiates, directs, or engages in the experiment. It is a personal duty and responsibility which may not be delegated to another with impunity. So we have a giant experiment going on here, and this is why they haven't passed laws, right? Because they're actually even violating their own laws that they created. They're making these ordinances, these orders, and these mandates, but they're not actually passing laws. Because if they do, you guys remember that, we need some sort of lawsuit and we need a big win in court using the Nuremberg codes, which they have ignored actually for many years. It's very interesting. Number 2, the experiment should be such as to yield fruitful results for the good of society, unprocurable by other methods or means of study, and not random and unnecessary in nature. We got another violation there. The experiment should be so designed and based upon the results of animal experimentation and a knowledge of the natural history of the disease or other problem under study that the anticipated results will justify the performance of the experiment. We're breaking that one too. Number 4, the experiment should be so conducted as to avoid all unnecessary physical and mental suffering and injury. Okay. Number 5, no experiment should be conducted where there is an a priori reason to believe that death or disabling injury will occur, except perhaps in those experiments where the experimental physicians also serve as subjects. The degree of risk to be taken should never exceed that determined by the humanitarian importance of the problem to be solved by the experiment. 7, proper preparations should be made and adequate facilities provided to protect the experimental subject against even remote possibilities of injury, disability, or death. 8, the experiment should be conducted only by scientifically qualified persons. The highest degree of skill and care should be required through all stages of the experiment of those who conduct or engage the experiment. Number 9, during the course of the experiment, the human subject should be at liberty to bring the experiment to an end. If he has reached a physical or mental state where the continuation of the experiment seems to be impossible. Number 10, during the course of the experiment, the scientist in charge must be prepared to terminate the experiment at any stage if he has probable cause to believe in the exercise of good faith, superior skill, and careful judgment required of him that a continuation of the experiment is likely to result in injury, disability, or death to the experimental subject. The Nuremberg Code is the most important document in the history of ethics of medical research. The code was formulated 50 years ago in August 1947 in Nuremberg, Germany, by American judges sitting in judgment of Nazi doctors accused of conducting murders and torturous human experiments in the concentration camp, the so-called doctor's trial. It served as a blueprint for today's principles that ensure the rights of subjects in medical research. We have no rights these days. All of this stuff where they're putting us in our homes and going to try to force us to take these vaccines and forcing you to wear a mask. That's another experiment they're doing on us. 7% of America has asthma, like me, and other people have emphysema, which they've renamed as COPD. And, having a mask on just makes the bacteria in your lungs have an easier time at growing because everybody's carrying around bacterial pneumonia in their lungs at all times. And what happens is the body gets sick. You get stressed, you get malnourished, you get old. and then things start overgrowing, or you hurt yourself with a mask. So I think that these codes are pretty important in terms of our fight in the future. And then I found this. This is for 2010, y'all. This is how long. Oops. Let me see if I did that right. This is how long this shit has been planned. Megacities on the Move. Brought to you by Forum for the Future, actually for a Sustainable World, the FIA Foundation for the Automobile and Society, Vodafone, and Embark. The, what does that say? WRI Center for Sustainable Transport. Your guide to the future of sustainable urban mobility in 2040. They plan this stuff so far in advance, y'all. It's unreal. Let me make this a little smaller. Forum for the Future is the UK's leading sustainable development NGO. We work internationally with government, business, and public service providers, helping them to develop strategies to achieve success through sustainability, to deliver products and services which enhance people's lives and are better for the environment and lead the way to a better world. Yeah, a better world for who? All right, so here you can see a list of all of these traders: Sheila Watson, Nicola Woodhead, Vodafone, Chris Burgess, Vodafone, Caroline Dewing, Samaresh Parida. So it is a multinational effort. Vodafone is the world's largest mobile communications company by revenue, with approximately 347 million proportionate customers as of June 30th, 2010. So this is a long time ago, y'all. Embark Global Network. Yeah, everything is a net, everything is a web. Embark Turkey, Embark everywhere, right? Globally and financially sustainable transport solutions to improve quality of life in cities. Since 2002, the network has grown to include 5 centers for sustainable transport located in Mexico, Brazil, India, Turkey, and the Andean region that works together with local transport authorities to reduce pollution, improve public health, and create safe and accessible, attractive urban public places. Well, everything that they tell you here sounds good, but knowing these people and their law of reversal, we know exactly what they're up to. So here's their overview. What's the destination? What can you do? 4 and 6, right? 4 for destruction, 6 for 666. They do all these studies in Istanbul, Mumbai. What are the scenarios? They love their scenarios, don't they? Overview. How will people travel? Well, they're not going to be allowed to travel. Cities do not exist in isolation. They will need to succeed in a world where key resources are in short supply, from oil scarcity and rising energy prices to competition between biofuels and food production. There are major challenges ahead that face us all. There will be critical questions about how we manage these resources, who controls them, and who can afford them. Overlaying and intensifying all of these pressures is climate change. Cities will have to deal with both the policy responses, such as more expensive carbon, and the physical impacts of changing weather patterns. Throughout human history, we have built our major settlements on rivers, estuaries, and coasts. Sea level rise and more frequent and intense storms and floods are just some of the impacts cities will have to contend with. What is mobility? In this toolkit, mobility means more than just transport. Our definition of mobility is a means of access to goods, services, people, and information. This includes physical movement, but also other solutions such as ICT-based platforms, more effective public service delivery provision, and urban design that improves. Oh, I thought it stopped recording. Sorry, guys. Okay, where was I? Sorry about that. ICT-based platforms, more effective public service delivery provision, and urban design that improves accessibility. To plan for people's needs in the mega cities of the future, we need to look at all these aspects together. I mean, when you realize the depth of the planning that has gone into our enslavement, it's unreal. Megacities on the Move offers 6 sustainable mobility solutions that we can all begin acting on today, from integrating planning to looking beyond the car. They want to get rid of cars because they do not want you to be able to go where you want to go, and improve use of technology. That's what this whole Tesla stuff is. Now they have Tesla has self-driving cars, right? So they can drive you wherever they want you to go. You don't get to determine where you go. Here's another list of traders: Peter Madden, Clayton Lane, Sybil Boulay, Madhav Pai, Sheila Watson, Nikki Woodhead. See, they're all proud of themselves. It's very interesting. How can we use this toolkit? You can use this section to introduce to your clients, partners, colleagues. One of the best ways to get engaged in the challenges you face is organize a workshop. See, I always wondered how our president, Obama, how did we get a president that was an urban planner, right? Like, that just seems like such a low level job. Well, it's not. It's a freaking multinational takeover. What can you do? If you're motivated to bring innovation into your strategic planning, these are actions you can take now to help create the sustainable urban mobility systems of the future. Yes, you can enslave your fellow human being. What's ahead? Future shaping of future urban mobility. Climate change. The scientific consensus, which is total bullshit, there should never be a scientific consensus at all if we're actually following the scientific method, is that climate change is a reality and that it is extremely likely to be the result of human activity. Yeah, so we don't know for sure, but we're going to do this bullshit anyways. We are already seeing the effects. We continue to break temperature records. Okay. Extreme weather events are increasingly common, and the melting of Arctic ice may now be irreversible. No, that's wrong. We know that's wrong. Climate change is linked with all of this. This is the same thing that they did, back in the old days, with throwing some virgins in the volcano and blaming you for the volcano erupting. This is exactly, they just use the same psyop over and over again in the fear porn loop. Demographic trends. We can be reasonably certain about population increases over the next 30 years, from 6.8 billion in 2010 to 8.8 billion in 2040. I don't even know how that could be possible when almost nobody I know has children anymore, or they have one or two. Here we go. All these resources are already heavily exploited, and many face the possibility of severe depletion or even exhaustion in the first half of the century. Scarcity will lead to competition and high volatile resource prices. It seems like the age of cheap oil and cheap energy is over, for example. This will have a knock-on effect on the cost and availability of transport and other goods and essential services to everyday needs in cities. Urban societies can respond in different ways through technological innovation, behavior change, economic development, migration patterns, and more. Yeah, or we could have figured out how to make more resources, right? Like, all the cattle land here in Texas doesn't need to be paved over. There could be cattle on the land like there was when I was a kid, right? But this is artificial. Everything is artificial and fake. Okay. I'm just checking to make sure I keep recording because I get scared here. Sometimes I talk for an hour and nobody's listening. Energy supply and demand. It is highly uncertain how societies will respond to the exploding demand yet stagnating supply of energy, especially oil. How do they know it's stagnating? Unless they're planning it. By 2040, the grid will be different. We will be burning electrons rather than hydrocarbons. These electrons will be greener, so there will be a lot more renewable energy generation. Okay, sure. As if oil isn't made within the crust of the earth. They've been lying to us since the 1970s about peak oil and it all going away. In places like Istanbul and Mumbai, with large populations with rapid economic growth, it is absolutely key that they focus on restraining growth in vehicle use. It's arguably the hardest and most important challenge confronting these cities. Yeah, they want to bring it down. There's 2 billion cars right now, and they're not happy with that. Climate change response. Megacities on the Move will have different scenarios to balance this. Governments make a lot of money on fuel duty, and this would be displaced by electrons if electric vehicles were mainstream, so there will have to be a profound shift in terms of how governments generate income and structure tax and incentives. Tom Briggs, Vice President, Policy and Communication of BP Alternative Energy. See, BP, the guys, British Petroleum, it's always these a-holes at the top with their plans for us that we didn't ask for. The 20th century was the age of the car. It became a status symbol for those who had it and aspirations for those who could not afford it. In the age of rising middle classes in emerging economies, demands for the car may explode, as we are already seeing in markets such as China. Managed badly, this could have a detrimental effects on the quality of life in cities. Yeah, because you guys do not want anybody to be able to move anywhere. And you'll see as we go through this. I'll leave a link so you guys can see this thing. Read it for yourself. I'm not going to go through all 65 pages. That's too much. What can you do? 6 solutions for the sustainable urban mobility. Looking 30 years into the future, the challenges and solutions can seem a long way off. Integrate, integrate, integrate. Transport, urban planning, business, public services, energy, and food supply can no longer be considered in isolation. Together, we need to create integrated mobility systems that will provide people with choice, flexibility, and seamless connectivity, whether they're traveling from one place to another or accessing the things they need virtually. Make the poor a priority. Yeah, because everybody's going to be equally poor in the future, except for the billionaires. Mobility systems must work for rich and poor alike to ensure everyone has access to goods, services, and job opportunities. Cities already have many people on lower incomes, and this trend will only increase. Yeah, because you guys know what you're up to. Tailored mobility solutions must be designed to meet their needs. Go beyond the car. Current growth rates in car ownership are completely unsustainable. Says who? There are already 1 billion cars in the world, projected to grow to 2 billion in a few decades. We need alternative ways of getting around, and we need to design for people, not cars. We will need urban neighborhoods with the infrastructure to serve local communities and dense developments that prevent further sprawl and are easy to walk around and provide access to key goods and services. Switch to IT networks. There is enormous potential for information technology to reduce the need for physical movement by enabling urban dwellers to access more and more services online. Yeah, you don't need to go anywhere or do anything. You can just access it online. Using IT networks to connect and coordinate cars and public transport will also help reduce traffic congestion and accident risks. Refuel our vehicles. As oil becomes more scarce and expensive and a security risk, we will need to implement greater energy efficient measures as well as shift to powering our vehicles with renewable low carbon fuel sources. We will need significant investment in battery and fuel technology to seize this opportunity and take alternative energy-powered vehicles to scale over the next few decades. Most vehicle technology experts agree that advanced technologies also have enormous potential to improve fuel efficiency. Okay, yeah, right. Many of our future challenges are shaped by people's values, behaviors, and preferences. We need to think about ways to influence mass behavior and social norms in positive ways to promote low carbon, healthier urban lifestyles. They always talk about carbon. Carbon is literally the backbone of all organic matter, of all life. Whoever or whatever runs this world does not like life. They hate life. Healthier urban lifestyles. Future leading cities will plan today to influence lifestyles rather than simply rely on additional road infrastructure and modes of transport. Yeah, they want to control everything. And batteries are wasteful, way more wasteful than oil is. You just pump it out of the ground. With batteries, you got to mine, then you got to make the battery, and then when it goes bad, you got to replace it. They lie to you and say they care about the environment when nothing they create does. Because energy is very expensive, cities are highly managed with limited personal mobility and effective and efficient public transport networks. In some cases, cities are downsized or even designed and built from scratch. Floating cities are also taking off in coastal areas as key climate adaptation strategy. So we're all going to be in water world. Is that what's going on here? I mean, just the depth of the change that they have planned. Energy, centralized grids relying on gas-fired power stations and carbon capture and storage. So they're switching from oil to gas. Resources, strict planning and rationing ensure resources are used as efficiently as possible. economy, a strong regulated economy. Climate change. Cities are replanned as extreme measures are taken to decarbonize the world. That word again, decarbonize, because we don't like life. Governance. One size fits all governance is effective, but reduces freedom. Plandopolis. Social structure. Society is fairer, but less individualistic. How can it be more fair if you as an individual have no rights? Values. It is a hardworking but high trust world. Business. Big businesses everywhere, and even governs some cities. See that? Corporations own us. Technology. We live in a high-tech world of integrated systems and virtualization. Need to get away. Millions of people now live in floating cities, and millions more escape daily to virtual cities like London 2.0. So, no, you don't get to actually go on vacation. You get to put on a headset and pretend and be on a virtual reality. Well, scenario number Sprawlville. This city is dominated by fuel-powered cars. The elite still gets around, but most urban dwellers face poor transportation infrastructure. Cities are governed by and for the elites. They maintain just enough of their basic infrastructure to minimize public disorder. It's a less equal world where the informal economy prospers. See, here you go. They have their little scenarios where, where's my car? Everywhere. Cars are still in favor and still the ultimate status symbol. They always have to make it seem that when people have individual rights, it's bad. Right? If you have freedom, it's just going to be so bad. If you have your own car, it's just going to be so evil. Renewabod. Scenario summary 3. So scenario summary 2 reminded me of the Hunger Games. Urban form. The age of urban sprawl is over. Cities are becoming more densely populated as they set boundaries for growth. City-states have reemerged as powerful forces to be reckoned with. Neighborhoods are organized around hubs, providing integrated services from in-house energy generation to vehicle charging points to community centers and flexible offices. On city streets, many more personal vehicles are electric or hybrid, and electric rail and buses are the top choice for public transport. Energy continues to be relatively expensive, so people often switch between personal vehicles, public transport, walking, and cycling. The infrastructure has been massively upgraded in many cities to encourage this. Sophisticated augmented reality services reduce the need for physical travel, and almost every aspect of transport is guided by technology. Highlights. Waiting for the train. There are ultra-high-speed rail links connecting every suburb. Driving off in the Sunday. Solar scooters are one of the popular ways to get around, except for at night. Who's in charge? The city council controls our lives to keep us safe and comfortable, and we like it. God, these people are disgusting. Strict government holds sway in nation states and city states alike. Social structure. The rich-poor gap has narrowed within societies, though many regions have been left behind in the low-carbon race. Energy. It's a brave new world where we have rapidly embraced renewable energy. Resources. There's a shortage of food and land, and resource use is strictly regulated. Economic power has shifted to south, to China, India, and their allies. Community. Urban form. Power has devolved to individuals and communities. Cities have become more informal and sometimes chaotic centers of creativity. For example, community organized vertical and small scale horticulture has flourished, with balconies, roofs, and the sides of buildings being given over to growing food. Mobility. Personal individualized mobility is important. Modes of transport proliferate, and people move about in a range of small electric vehicles, souped up bikes, covered scooters, pod cars, and so on. Okay, sounds like Thailand. Customization is rife. Some people even build their vehicles locally from kits using open source designs, local materials, and homebrew biofuels. The roads look chaotic with so many vehicle types and so much personalized transport, but somehow it all works through smart use of information technology to avoid collisions and optimize routes. Highlights: plant-powered public transport. Blow buses are one of the most popular cheap ways to get around the city. I have no idea what that means. DIY everything. 3D printer allows anyone to be a homegrown manufacturer from furniture to fashion. Where did our center go? There is no city center anymore. Everyone has our own very different neighborhood. Energy. Local renewable energy generation and decentralized grids have superseded coal, gas, and oil. Resources cities have transformed to produce more of their own food and deal locally with waste and water. Economy. Grassroots businesses and new technology compensate for protectionist trade and slow global growth. Climate change. People and communities adapt to climate change and reduce carbon despite weak global policy. Governance. Central coordination is weak and more power resides at the community level using computer-based collaborative tools. Social structures. It's a more unequal world, but full of opportunities if you're able to grab them. I don't even know how. This actually is the only one that sounds remotely decent, because you have some freedom to freaking go where you want and do stuff. This whole, we want things to be equal, they want all of us equally poor, equally destitute. Values. People are less consumerist and less status driven. They look more to religion and community. Business is more local and decentralized, and many global brands are now extinct. This sounds like the only decent scenario so far. This is not what they want. Perspectives from our partners. All right, I'm going to check one more time. Okay, we're still recording. Sorry about that, guys. Imagination and energy. It is our conviction that mobility is central to the delivery of wider human benefits of economic development, social interaction, and freedom to explore our surroundings. However, we believe also that these positive benefits are entirely dependent upon the extent to which the mobility is both safe and sustainable. The FIA Foundation's work, from promoting fuel efficiency in the world's cars to working for the greatest possible safety on our roads, aims to ensure that it is. The specific challenges in addressing an increasingly urban and intensively populated planet are complex. However, they center around our ability to be efficient in our use of energy and imaginative in how we source it. Of equal importance will be our capacity to work together across the globe to find common, coordinated solutions. Our global response has not been impressive so far. To the extent that it is due to a lack of information and shared understanding, our hope is that this study will cast some useful light into that darkness. Yeah. So look at how far they've come. Given the rate of change, our world will be a very different place by 2040. Engineering and technological innovations will transform urban living, in particular the way we communicate and share information as the convergence of internet and mobile technology becomes a reality. Expect mobile networks to extend beyond human communication. Everything that could benefit from a wireless network is likely to have one, and connectivity will combine with energy, water management, transport, and health as more services are delivered online. Yeah, you won't be able to see your doctor like me. Anyways, I'm going to leave this for you guys to read, but this is just... What's your destination? I don't know. Please tell me, Vodafone, with your little one-eye symbol here. 4 scenarios for urban mobility. Scenarios are explorations of alternative futures. They are a tool to challenge, inspire, and support individuals and organizations to plan ahead. Why 2040? We chose to examine the future of mobility in 2040 because urban infrastructure has a long life. So setting a 30-year timeline provides enough time to plan for and deliver a new generation of sustainable mobility solutions. Horizon scanning research. As part of the phase, we undertook desk research as well as structured interviews with more than 40 experts involved in different aspects of urban mobility from around the world, including stakeholders in the 2 cities we have chosen to test the scenarios, Istanbul and Mumbai. Our aim was to identify current forces and uncertainties around urban mobility, as well as get interviewees' perspectives on key factors and trends shaping the future of mobility. Scenario planning, based on the key factors and trends, then developed scenarios. We then developed scenarios showing different possible outcomes for mobility in cities in the year 2040. Using these scenarios, we also created outlines of city-specific scenarios for Istanbul and Mumbai, suggesting what might happen locally in each city within the context of the global level scenarios. I mean, these people have just elected themselves like kings of the freaking world, haven't they? City workshops. We conducted 2-day workshops in Istanbul and Mumbai to validate the scenarios, identify relevant challenges and opportunities for the local context, as well as short, medium, and long term solutions that could be implemented. Partner workshops. We also conducted workshops for the project partners in an effort to explore the implications of the scenarios for the organizations and identify options for future strategy responses. Here we have the big lie of fossil fuels. If you believe that a bunch of fossils were compressed and somehow magically made oil, okay. Alternative energy dominant. What kind of global governance framework will we have? Top down. Global governance frameworks are strong and well coordinated. A convergence of opinion on key issues such as climate change has led to the development of stronger institutions and binding frameworks and more collaborative world order. What are we experiencing right now? Bottom up, decentralized governance solutions are preferred to global level action. Trade relations are more regionalized and innovative. Innovations happen in local power hubs. The world is focused on self-sufficiency, resilience, and localized solutions. Well, we can see that now that they're destroying the small businesses, that bottom up is not what they chose top down access to. So this is what you're going towards, right? So they have their little a-hole thing here. We're not going towards Sprawlville or Communicity, which Communicity seemed like the only decent one. We're going towards this, Plandopolis and Renewabad, whether we like it or not. Scenario 1, Plandopolis. In a world of fossil fuels and expensive energy, only solution is tightly planned and controlled urban transport. Oh, yes. 2035, the Global Food Council gets new powers to control farming. 2015, a global climate deal is reached. Was that the Kyoto Treaty? I don't know. There were some treaties back then. Global climate deal is reached. A framework of global cuts for 50% to 1990 levels by 2050 is agreed with interim targets. 2020, Globe Tech, a major multinational company, bans flying for business meetings and sees share prices rise sharply in the following years. 2020, y'all. They told you in 2010 what they were up to. 2025, Citicorp takes over the management of Laos after a governance failure. Wow. 2018, new coal and gas power stations have CCS with funding supporting this technology in developing countries. I'm not sure what CCS is. 2023, so it's coming up. High-profile nuclear storage shelter leak due to a rust project further delays nuclear large-scale generation. 2027, plans for new floating cities approved in Bangladesh and the Netherlands. Well, the Netherlands is a freaking floating country, basically. One-size-fits-all governance is effective but reduces freedom. Global governance is well coordinated and effective. There are agreements on climate change, displaced people, and global agriculture. Global agreements are quickly implemented at a national level. Technology plays a significant role. Oh, sorry, it's my alarm. Keep myself from sleeping too late. Global governance is well coordinated and effective. There are agreements on climate change, displaced people, and global agriculture. Global agreements are quickly implemented at a national level. Technology plays a significant role in supporting governance. Cities are often run by specialist city governing companies. These companies bid for very lucrative long-term contracts and may run dozens of major cities worldwide. This means the effective policies developed in one city can quickly spread around the world. but it also means that very different cities tend to run in the same way despite local differences. This leads to complaints about loss of national sovereignty and freedom. I mean, we're literally experiencing this right now. I mean, think about it. All the stadiums, Verizon Center, Jiffy Lube Live. I mean, you can't even name a center after any one person anymore. It's got to be a corporation. And then they're demolishing the small businesses, only letting Amazon and McDonald's and those guys keep going. It's very interesting. We're already in Plandopolis. A fairer but less individualistic society. Inequality between countries has decreased as the global economy has rebalanced. Inequality within countries has also decreased, though in most societies there is still a persistent underclass and elite. Individual freedoms have been eroded. Societies tend to be less diverse than in the past. So civil society is less vibrant and there is less protest and political violence. Interesting. Big business is thriving in the globalized economy, operating global brands with localized distribution and supply chains due to the high price of oil. Business plays a major role in government and in people's lives. For example, Citicorp is a global firm that specializes in governing cities, transport, energy, healthcare, and so on as efficiently as possible. It uses computer models to design integrated systems that can be adjusted and applied to any large city in the world. More and more services are delivered virtually. Jesus. Car is no longer a status symbol. Right across the world, people are very willing to participate in coordinated mass transit systems. The 9 to 5 no longer exists since we are always logged on, and although we also work more. In some megacities, alienation and depression is a big issue due to the virtualization, work fatigue, and fragmentation of traditional societal units. Special interest groups are popular among older people, calling for a renaissance of low-tech, face-to-face connectivity in cities. Yeah, because it's freaking depressing. I mean, I just moved out of New York City 6 months ago. Megacity regions in some parts of the world house more than 100 million people. Cities are tightly regulated and carefully planned. Transport in most cities is highly regulated. Some cities have become completely car-free. Others only allow electric cars, and the majority have strict standards on fuel economy for any internal combustion engine or hybrid vehicles. Car parks have disappeared from many urban areas, replaced by houses or urban farms. Commuters apply for a 15-minute travel slot if they need to travel to work. Yeah, okay. Please let me travel. Fuhrer. People are told when to travel and by what mode. Small vehicles are likely to be electric, using energy from centralized grids, when larger vehicles such as coaches and trucks are more likely to use liquid fuel. Car ownership is low, though the rich are still driving cars and paying the high price. Transport systems have evolved to be highly integrated across the different modes, including walking and cycling. Inner city, I mean, we're just going back to the days pre-car. Right? And now, they don't even want you to have your horse because they hate carbon. And you can't control someone who's got a horse and they can jump on and go across wherever they want. This is nuts. They can shut off your electricity at any time and tell you where you can go or where you can't go. Scenario 2, Sprawlville. The city is dominated by fossil fuel-powered cars. The elite still get around, but most urban dwellers face poor transport infrastructure. And so they've got these other things here. 2017, oil prices spiked to $200. I don't remember that they were that high in 2017. I think it was more like $100. Wealth gap reaches historic high, 2027. So we'll look out for that. So basically, they've told you all these things, like whatever scenario they've picked to implement upon us. And so far, to me, it looks like it's scenario 1. 2035, Beijing and Singapore ban non-electric cars in city central. 2036 to 38, global food production falls under the combined pressures of a biofuels rush. A 2-year global level famine occurs. They already told you that they were going to have a famine in 2022. 2015, global climate change deal fails. There was a deal back around then, and I believe the United States did not sign it at the time. I have to look that up, but I remember that. The market is only now starting to realize that oil supply has peaked. Climate impacts are occurring roughly in line with predictions, but the elites, nations, or groups prefer to protect themselves rather than taking global action. They always, this global monstrosity always has to make it seem like being an individual or taking care of your own is bad and taking care of yourself. A less equal world where the informal economy prospers. This is an oligarchs and black marketers world. No, the oligarchs world, oh God, everything is so backwards with these people, isn't it? The oligarchs world is where you have top down global governance. Global middle class prosperity in the 2020s proved a false dawn and inequality is up. We already know the middle class is being decimated after nearly a year of this bullshit. So we know that we're probably not on this, except for the fact that the wealth gap is at a historic high because even the quote unquote wealthy people, the people making six figures here in America, if you had a small business, well, you're done for. Cities are locked into car use, though congestion is rife. Well, you know what? How about instead of spending money and time on all this bullshit, you guys just actually built the railroads and the buses and the depots that you promised? How about you actually fix the real problem instead of figuring out how to herd us somewhere like cattle? Right? They don't ever actually say, "Oh, we're running out of water. We need to have more desalination plants." Oh no, we need to kill everyone on Earth and make sure that they don't have access to water. That's what needs to be done. There's never actually a thought of, hey, how do we make things better? It's always, how can we just railroad and corral people into a place and take away all their rights because we love them so much? Here's this Renewabod, 2015. Binding global climate change pact signed. Strict carbon quotas and the U.S. $1 trillion mitigation fund. Oh, they want to steal $1 trillion from us. 2022, car use and GDP growth are officially decoupled. Oh, that sounds like a good scenario. 2032, U.S. $1 billion Beijing innovation contest leads to hydrogen cells breakthrough. 2013, a second global recessionary cycle occurs because of resource crunches and hard-hitting natural disasters impacting key economic hubs. C8, powerful world cities hold first summit and agree to form cyber armies. Well, they probably did do that. 2025, the EU bans fossil fuel-powered automobiles within a 5-year phase-out plan. That seems likely. China, Mexico, and Turkey form resource coalition to secure global lithium supplies. Yeah, and then that would screw over everyone wanting a battery. A high carbon price has pushed fossil fuel prices up and stimulates investment in renewables, including concentrated solar power, wind, and wave. Because of the sharp transition to low carbon solutions, energy is still relatively expensive. Innovations in advanced thin film solar cells make decentralized generation easier, and some countries get microgeneration targets for households in an effort to reduce costs. Nuclear energy and biofuels are uncompetitive. The next wave of energy innovation is happening with ubiquitous generation through vibration-based technology and mainstreaming of hydrogen fuel cell technology. Cost of global decarbonization has caused global disruption. And disposable incomes are lower than in 2010. Yep. Just all of these destructive scenarios. How can they destroy humans and restrict us? Strict governance holds sway in nation states and city states alike. Governments impose stricter rules and use increasingly sophisticated technology for monitoring and enforcement. They often mandate where you live within the city and how you travel and how much energy you can use. Chips embedded in everyday objects ensure compliance. Crime rates have dropped and traffic regulation has improved, but civil society organizations argue that the democratic process is dead. Well, they just kind of took every bad thing they possibly could from this and they're rolling with it, didn't they? Everything bad for the human. Quality of life means superior connectivity via integrated smart personal devices, according to Nature, and access to efficient, low carbon lifestyle enablers, such as integrated work, travel, entertainment services. Yes, that means your entire fucking life is right in front of the computer and you don't go anywhere or do anything that they don't know about. That sounds so fun, doesn't it, y'all? So fun. These monsters, all of this effort, 65 pages of bullshit, which thousands and thousands of hours. Cities are consolidating and moving towards polycentric models. The age of urban sprawl is over. Cities are redensifying and setting growth boundaries in an effort to create more efficient polycentric forms. Former suburbs have emerged as new cities, smaller in size but well connected to megacities through ultra-high-speed rail links. Megacities continue to be important engines of growth, and the new city-states, this is matched by political power. They could have built these rails a long time ago, but they won't do it. Personal vehicles are attainable but no longer desirable. Car ownership is stigmatized in many places, much like smoking was in the 2000s. Personal vehicles are ultra small, stackable electric pods and solar scooters that can be programmed to drive themselves, being an onboard. That's what I want, to be on a scooter that tells me where I'm going. Okay. Scooters that can be programmed to drive themselves, being an onboard journey planner, leaving the driver to have a meal or chat with friends. They are frequently interchanged with public transport modes as well as cycling, walking, because urban centers are often non-motorized. People feel a civic pride in using effective public transport systems. Wow. Crazy. Chinese railway systems encircle the globe, taking people vast distances on 300-mile-per-hour trains. I mean, they could have done this already. They didn't have to destroy. They don't have to destroy everything to build one good thing. Amazing. Scenario 4, Communicity. This is the one that thought sounded the only decent one, right? 2020, the UN is disbanded. Woohoo! And the G20 is put on hold as people vote for the next president via Facebook. Well, we just got basically slapped in the face by the UN and shown that our vote does not count because the world government selects the leader, right? The world government selects who is the leader. And I think it's probably because there's no anti-war movement when a Democrat's in, so I have a feeling they want to start a big war. That's the only reason why. It's the only reason why it makes any sense to take Trump out of office. It makes a lot more sense for world government purposes to blame the economic demolition and the fake COVID deaths on the right and the people who are supposed to be for small government and individual freedom. It makes more sense because the world government is some sort of like pseudoscientific, electronic, communist, feudal serfdom, communist, fascist. To me, they're the same thing. All governments in this world end in feudal serfdom. Once they're taking to their, doesn't matter what it says on paper, once it's taken out to its fruition, you end up with a small group of elites controlling and owning everything, and everybody else is a bunch of peasants. And I don't care how it started out in the first place. It could be a king. It still ends in feudal serfdom. It could be America. It's going to end in feudal serfdom. Everything. Communism ends in feudal serfdom. Fascism ends in feudal serfdom. It's the same thing. Whatever this entity is that controls this world, it always, no matter what happens, it always ends up where the individual human being has less rights, and there are a few people in charge that have everything. No matter where you go, no matter how good it looks on paper. South Korea ranks highest in terms of GDP per capita. Could be. I used to live over there. I like Korea and Koreans. Global climate change deal fails. Fossil fuel use is a thing of the past. Oil supplies have peaked and coal sits on the ground unmined because the alternatives are so much cheaper and work better. We hope so. Micronuclear has proliferated too, with thousands of small reactors dotted across the world. Well, have they figured out how to get rid of the waste? Food is expensive and demand for land is high. Large, privately owned and poorly regulated plankton and algae farms dot coastlines in populated zones, all bioengineered. Community organized vertical and small scale horticulture has flourished in cities with balconies, roofs, and the sides of buildings giving over to growing food. Okay, so I was wrong. This sounds like hell too. Floating farms and flood resistant construction. Well, this is getting me tired. Central coordination is weak and more power resides at the community level using computer-based collaborative tools. That would be better. Global agreements and governance grew increasingly complex, expensive, and unworkable. Politicians failed to realize that international machinery could only go so far without cultural integration. Eventually, much of it fell apart to be replaced by a network of bilateral, regional, and peer-to-peer alliances. Some nations remain strong, but many have weakened or fragmented, replaced by regional or local governments. People are less consumerist and status-driven and look more towards religion and community. I believe they're probably going to try to put us in a one-world religion. Listen to this. Bio and nanotechnologies have also developed rapidly. Some of the biggest breakthroughs are happening where technologies such as bionics and ICT or bio and nanotech converge. Neurosensing controls via brain activity is being widely used in information technology and more recently in transport. The R&D is no longer the preserve of major companies and governments. Open source ICT and local manufacturing technologies means a backstreet labs are a major source of innovation. Oh yeah, well I'm sure Big Pharma is going to let that happen. The city has become less formalized and more diverse and dynamic, with individuals and communities taking control over planning. Mobility, diverse modes of personalized transport compete for space coordination via automated technology. Public transport systems persist, but in general have suffered through lack of investment. Some have fallen into disrepair, even in wealthy cities. Yeah, because the government runs everything, and whatever the government runs, it ruins. Absolutely ruins everything. They can't even run a freaking train system that most people, like in DC or New York City, are forced to use every day, and they still can't figure out how to make a profit. I mean, that's crazy, right? Like when you have a captive audience and you are still so bad at business, you hire the wrong people, you do the wrong things, and you still can't make a profit. I mean, that's crazy. It's just absolutely monstrous. What can you do? Stop complying. That's what we can do. I've built stuff like this. These walls. They don't always look so nice though. Look at this. This doubles as your coffin. You get in a wreck and they just take you with a little crane and they just plop you into the grave. It's pretty easy, right? It's sustainable. It's all the carbon you're allowed for the year. A stackable two-seater car designed to be used part of a mobility on demand system, similar to a bike hire scheme such as Velib, where stacks of vehicles are available for instant short-term hire at key transport hubs such as train stations and multiple other points around the city. 3 or 4 city cars, we already have City Bike in New York City, can fit in a standard parking space. Future iterations, what, can you just pick it up? Looks like it weighs at least 200 pounds. They have these car stackers that are actually built like a carousel. I have to price car stackers because they put it in these big buildings. You have to have, I forget, it's like they only allow 20% of the building occupants to have a car. So you have that many spaces for however many. So if you had 200 unit apartment building, you put 20 parking spaces. And what you do is you have these car stackers, and they usually are too tall because you don't want to have digging down in certain places is hard, right? It's very expensive, the excavation. Straddling bus, an electric bus rapid transit system without the need for additional road space. This bus has two levels, lower of which is open and straddles a road, acting like a tunnel that cars can drive through. Passengers board up the upper deck to a maximum capacity of three. There's our number, 100. The bus can either run on rails on either side of the car lane, or it can follow the white lines using an autopilot system. The bus is powered by relay charging and also charges at its stops. The first system is due to be in Beijing in 2011. London Garden, the award-winning concept for car-free mobility in central London that integrates bicycle, scooter, and bus modes. A specially designed semi-electric bicycle is available for hire and can be ridden as either a bicycle or electric scooter. When ridden in bicycle mode, it generates and stores energy for the scooter mode. Schweeb pedal-powered monorail. Dweeb uses pedal-powered, highly aerodynamic capsules that reduce drag and require less energy to propel at 20 kilometers per hour than you need to walk at 5 kilometers per hour. The capsules along guide rails 6 meters above the ground that can be suspended above existing roads and walkways. A successful system would potentially have positive effects on a city's health system by increasing general activity levels. Oh, so you get to pedal. Oh, good Lord. Making the poor a priority. Yeah, because we're all going to be super poor. Mobility systems must work for the rich and poor alike to ensure no one is shut off from good services or employment opportunities. Oh, yeah? You don't take that vaccine, see what they're going to do to you. There are currently 4 billion around the globe on low incomes. Cities in particular have many low. Yeah, how 4 billion people are poor, and now they're going to make the rest of us poor. Chop and Drop World Bike. World Bike is an international network of professionals in the bicycle industry working on creating affordable bike transportation and income generating opportunities before. Yeah, and how are you riding your freaking bike anywhere when it's snowing outside? Crazy. Medellin Metro Cable. Metro Cable is the urban electric cable car system in Medellin, Colombia, that was installed as a complementary transit system on the metro. It links poor hillside barrios directly to the city and the metro system, vastly improving the access as conventional public transport could not negotiate the steep hillsides. It has eased the commutes of most of the inhabitants of the barrios and has revitalized some of the areas that it passed through. See, that sounds like a decent idea. The non-D container. Design firm IDEO collaborated with Acumen Fund, a nonprofit global venture fund, and the Nandi Foundation to design the Nandi container. The 20-liter water vessel has smooth contours and handles to be carried on the hip and includes an optional wheel kit that allows to be pulled on the ground. With the flat side of the vessel down and the open facing up, users can easily fill with water. This design is more accessible for women and encourages easy water handling and transport. Yeah, so all of this work and all of this money that these a-holes in this nonprofit global venture, they come up with this so that the woman still has to go down to the freaking river and fight the crocodiles instead of just building a fucking pipe, putting a pipe there and a pump and bringing the water to the village, or drilling a well, which would cost you maybe $10,000. But no, we got to have all these morons thinking of this. Crazy. So that this person can remain in poverty. Go beyond the car. They could have done all of this if they would actually want to make a profit, but they don't. They want to control. There are already 1 billion cars in the world, a figure which is expected to grow to 2 billion in the next few decades. To avoid cities becoming further congested and car dependent, it is critically that we design for people, not cars. Yeah, why is the New York City subway in disrepair? Why is the metro in DC never making a profit? Why are they dirty? Why are there always not enough trains? Because the government loves us so much. The city is an organism. The city looks like a microchip to me. I was watching some videos where people think that, well, there's actually Energy in the Vacuum. It's a pretty good book, Energy from the Vacuum, and that they're actually charging us and falsely labeling it, battery powered and this and that powered, that they actually know how to take the energy from the vacuum. Could be. Social bicycle. Yes, let's go back to the days when people could not go anywhere. And I, like someone like me who's disabled, cannot ride a bicycle. I cannot be on this seat bouncing my spine up and down and leaning over the handlebars. This is crazy. I haven't ridden a bike in 18 years. It's dangerous. People get old. Roboto car. Oh, look at this. What the hell? Nissan has designed a collision-free zero-carbon robot concept car. Design is biomimetic. The Emporo travels in a group of like vehicles, mimicking the behavioral patterns of a school of fish in avoiding obstacles without colliding with each other. The technologies developed for Emporo are not just useful for collision avoidance, but also to improve the migration efficiency of a group of vehicles and contribute to environmentally friendly and traffic jam-free driving environment. That looks crazy. You gonna buy a car that looks like this? This is another thing that like doubles as your coffin should you get in a wreck. IntelliDrive, I think we already have this, is a U.S. initiative to develop transport connectivity. It aims to enable networked wireless real-time communications between vehicles, infrastructure, and drivers and passengers' personal devices. U-City Seoul. I always liked Seoul. Seoul City Management is piloting a project called Ubiquitous Seoul, or U-City Seoul, which offers real-time location-based services from multiple sensors around the city. Residents can use smartphones to check air quality. Oh, the air quality was bad in Seoul when I was there. Get traffic information or reserve sports pitches at local parks. People with asthma can get pollution alerts. Well, you don't care about people with asthma. You guys want us to wear masks and die. Telepresence. High-end telepresence systems such as DVE immersion room are now good enough for people to feel like they are in the same room thanks to 3D high-definition live video. Oh, yeah, so you can have sex with someone across the world. 3D presentations will be simultaneously be given, blurring the boundaries between real and the virtual. That's what they want. They want you like in front of your computer, never leaving it, so they can control you. And you can see they made a huge move towards that this year with everybody working from home that can, right? And then everybody that can't work from home is a non-essential, right? Think about it. Refuel our vehicles. We need to shift the way we power our vehicles from petrol to renewable low-carbon fuel sources. Oil is one of the most threatened and increasingly difficult to access resources in the world. No, it's not. Good Lord. It is not that hard. We literally have 3 oil wells of our own on our land, and all they did was come out and drill it. You drill it, you hit it, you put on the iron horse, you pump it out. There's pipes that run along the land and go to the tanks, and Permian comes by every 2 weeks and takes out the oil. It's not that hard. It's much harder to mine something, create a battery, and when you throw that battery away, which you have to always do because they don't want to make something that they don't get to replace all the time. It's crazy. I would think that they would be using solar power by now, right? Like why isn't every new home and every business, every building built with solar panels on it now? And at least take the energy that the sun gives us everywhere and put it into the grid. I mean, one of the big problems is they don't know how to store it, right? So you have to have these big battery places to store it. In fact, I bid one last year for New York City, a big battery storage building. And when I say batteries, I mean like 20 feet long and 10 feet high batteries. MIT robo-scooter, biofuels from waste, cellulosic ethanol, timber chipping, corn stalks. They feed corn stalks to animals. This is another big scam, right? Growing corn and selling it for fuel and telling you it's better than oil. No, it ruins the land. Corn seeds are coated in mercury. That's why they're orange. When I was a kid, I was not allowed to touch the corn seeds because they're coated in mercury. And to keep them from molding and also to keep animals from eating it. Yeah, because it's so vegan, right? You're eating corn. If you're eating corn, you're not vegan. They're coated in mercury before you even. So they're killing off whatever poor rat comes over there to get a little snack, right? And then when you plant it, that mercury gets washed off into the groundwater. I mean, I've known about this since the 1980s. This is so crazy that people don't know what goes on at a farm. Oh, let's check to see. Oh man, I can't believe I'm still recording. This is awesome. Change people's behavior. Although planning and technology can do a lot to improve mobility, many of our future challenges are shaped by people's values, behavior, and preferences. As well as switching from cars to more low-carbon vehicles, cities need to think about ways in which mass behavior and social norms can be influenced to get people to think beyond their current patterns of travel and ways of living. And that's why I did the Operation Mockingbird at the beginning of this. I wanted to show you how all of these things work in conjunction. The world government is real. Singapore congestion pricing. Singapore was an early and successful pioneer of user charges to prevent urban congestion. It began with a simple fee system in 1975 and was upgraded in 1998 to a high-tech system that charges motorists at variable rates depending upon the time at which they drive within the city. Strong investment in public. God, they just can't take enough from you, can they? Good God. They cannot have enough control. No driving days in Seoul. No driving days are used in many cities around the world to check congestion. I don't know why anybody would try to drive in Seoul. I never did. I just rode the freaking transport or walked everywhere. Or I took a cab. Participants agree to not drive on one business day per week. And compliance is monitored via RFID tags attached to windscreens. City benefits from having approximately 10,000 fewer vehicles on the road every day. Well, okay. I don't think it's bad to ask people to do it, but this whole tracking thing is total bullshit. Whipcar, peer-to-peer car rental. Whipcar is the first peer-to-peer car rental service. Car owners can rent out their own cars when they aren't using them. Oh, Airbnb for cars. Plan the future now. How to run a workshop. If you need some assistance, call the Forum for the Future. So you got all of these able traders working to make the worst possible scenarios happen. They can't just build a railway and then advertise it and make it cool to ride the rail or make it convenient. No, we have to. Here, look, they even give you a sample agenda for day one. Plenary introduction to the scenario immersion exercise. So they get you to say you were just a regular idiot who wanted to participate in this. They get your ideas to further enslave us. All this brainstorming stuff. So when people call you a conspiracy theorist, what is this? This isn't a conspiracy? It's a conspiracy fact that they are planning day and night and day, 30, 40, 50 years in advance. Amazing. Day 2. Tell you all about how to run your amazing afternoon exercises, business model generation. And then here's the case studies from Istanbul and Mumbai. In order to test the mobility scenarios and explore their application to different urban settings, we ran workshops in 2 different cities, Mumbai and Istanbul. There are 2 key global megacities, but they are also rapidly growing, rapidly changing urban areas. They are already experiencing all the positive and negative effects of these changes, including severe mobility challenges. In advance, we developed outlines of what might be happening in Mumbai and Istanbul if each scenario became reality. We asked the participants to engage in these workshops and develop visions of the future based on their expert knowledge about their cities and the specific mobility challenges they might face. In order to get as holistic a perspective as possible, the workshop audience was a varied mix of stakeholders engaged in different aspects of mobility, including transport planners, architects, companies providing mobility solutions, and campaigning organizations. There were very different results for each city. The Mumbai workshop led to an overall action plan focused on transport and urban planning, whereas in Istanbul, the participants decided they needed a more general campaign to promote sustainability in the city. All these people working behind your back, look at these guys. The Megacities on the Move scenarios ignited a powerful understanding of the need to change. Continue with business as usual made Istanbul in 2040 a dismal place with severe limits on energy use. But there are interesting, more positive visions. Could Turkey become a big player in the energy markets by investment in alternatives? How could this also create an awareness of sustainable living among the citizens of Istanbul? We could build a very livable city with a great sense of community. Sibyl Boulay, director of Embark Turkey. The aspirations for Istanbul. In the workshop, participants expressed the following aspirations for Istanbul in 2040. So this is really interesting. I had read a long time ago that Austin, Texas was like the beta test for UN Agenda 21 in Texas. So now that I see this, they do pick cities, right? And they bring in their people and they change everything. It's very interesting. All right. One of the top 5 cities in the world, a greener city with lower emissions and healthier air, which I don't see anything wrong with lower emissions and healthier air. A peaceful city, a stable population, which probably means nobody gets to breed unless they say so. Sustainable lifestyles, which means whatever the government says is sustainable, i.e., you're not allowed to have meat. Strong safety nets for the poor. Everyone's going to be poor in their scenario. We're seeing it happen right now. Infrastructure that keeps up with population and demand. Eco footprint going down and biocapacity going up. The city produces more and consumes less. I think that's good, right? But why do they not let you keep chickens in the city, right? Like they don't let all of these rules that people have passed. They don't let you do things. Like I don't believe they actually want you growing a garden in the city. Mobility for people, not vehicles. Collaborative, human-centered urban planning. Planning takes into account factors such as accessibility and resource availability. More use of the ICT solutions to reduce physical movement. This is the key. They're not going to really, I don't believe they're really going to make all these wonderful public transportation things. I believe they're going to ban cars. They're going to let you maybe have a bicycle, but they really want you stuck in front of your computer. Shift away from fossil fuels. Car-free city center. More pedestrian cyclist-friendly solutions. Better navigation systems to improve road safety. Well, if there's no cars, how are you not safe on the road? Istanbul experiences severe water shortages, and there's a strong focus on technologies that radically improve the efficiency of resource use in agriculture. The freaking world is like 90% water. Why don't they have one of these big freaking conferences about desalination plants and digging more wells and actually producing more water? Because the water cycle, the water never goes away. The water gets used, and then it rains, it condenses and it comes back down again. Polluters are heavily fined. Traffic is automatically controlled by a smart system, reducing congestion and regulating flow. Companies have specific travel slots for their employees. Car is restricted, forcing people on the public transport networks. There has been a massive uptake of virtual working as well as cycling because this helps add credit to your calorie balance. Yeah, you're not allowed to eat unless they say so. All of this is facilitated by smartphones, which have become the one-stop shop for information, payment, and regulation enforcement. Turkey remains a major oil and gas transport hub, but with volatile flows and falling production levels. Infrastructure favored by the elites and powerful companies is cordoned off, while others have become semi-derelict, unofficially colonized by migrants and with major security problems. Many low-income workers are forced to relocate to work sites in order to manage the commute. Oh, so you get to be in a work camp. Boom. Roads are segregated so that the rich get access to high-speed lanes, breeding resentment. Oh, so that what they did, I get it. So in Plandopolis, Istanbul highlights, so they went through each one of these things. This is their Sprawlsville thing. Renewabad. Communicity. Interesting. All right, y'all. I'm about tired of this. Look at Mumbai real quick. In Mumbai, the suburban rail system is already over 150% capacity. Yeah, you always see the things where the Indians are all sitting on top of the freaking train. Why haven't they built more? Why, instead of doing this, have they not built more trains? Why don't they run more trains more often? Because they don't really care, right? They want control. They want control. It's supposed to grow from 22 million to 38 million in 2040. Oh, listen to this. There is a lot that needs to be done in order to make planning more democratic. There is not much public discussion on what people require or want. Only the powerful builders decide what happens to the city. On a Rudha poll, director Kamla Raheja Vidyanidhi Institute of Architecture and Environmental Studies. I'm sure I butchered that. Sorry. And then they just go through the scenarios. Rival cities, scrambling for oil, bicycles, maintenance cutbacks. It's really interesting. We went through all of this. Thank yous. Here's a long list of traders. Very proud of themselves. More of them. See, when people say that it's the Jews that are doing everything, they're not all Jews, y'all. Synagogue of Satan. All right, guys. I hope you have a good day. And I know this was really long, but I just wanted to kind of go through it. And I hope you're well. Take care.